Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for coming and joining us, hanging out, having a beer, some conversations, and covering fun things happening in and adjacent to craft beer. That's how we roll, Brian. That is exactly how we roll here.
Very adjacent. We cover a lot of things that are adjacent, but also a lot of beer. Yeah,
we do. But I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm a little tired. I had some time off last week, and it only took me a few days to already feel a little rundown. I don't know how this happens. It's something about, I don't know, working for 8 hours or something like that. But I'm here. I'm having a beer. I'm feeling all right. How you doing, Tim?
You know, I'm okay. I mysteriously cut my finger somehow. Like I'm just sitting here doing stuff, and all of a sudden, like my finger's a bit sore. And it gets more sore and more sore. And I look at it, and there's a huge slash down the side of it. I'm like,
whoa,
there's no blood, but it's like, it looks like as deep as a cut could go without blood being produced. So I did some wound control, but I have no idea where in the world I cut my finger. But I got a Band-Aid on it now, some Neosporin. I took Nate. I don't know if I told you this, but you know the Snackle box that you got me. I turned that into a first aid kit.
Wonderful.
So I broke out my Snackle box, which had my Neosporin and some alcohol wipes and Band-Aids in it, and I'm good as new, man. I'm good as new, thanks to the Snackle box. Actually,
well done, Snackle box.
Yeah, thank you, Snackle box. But Nate, how's it going, man?
Going well. Like Brian, I also had some time off last week. I was in between jobs, so I started a new job at the start of the week, and I'm happy to say I'm back in beverages, back working for a distributor. So, actually excited to be at work again.
Okay.
And
do you want to shout them out on here, or do you want to keep that private?
No, I'll shout them out. It's Functional Distributing Company, so they do a lot of hemp and CBD infused beverages, and so it's something I don't have a lot of experience in, but it certainly seems like the industry is moving in that direction.
Yeah, you have to start getting stoned more for work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's for work.
It's for work. Nate.
They don't drug test, so they know.
I was going to say, you can't. Yeah, that's not surprising.
At my local, I've got a Total Wine really close to me. They have taken 3 shelves away from the local beer selection, and it's all now THC infused. So what you say seems to be accurate. And I'm in an area I wouldn't have necessarily thought was big into that sort of thing, but no, it's 3 shelves of it now dedicated, and there was none of it in the store at all. So they went big with it to start off.
Go big.
I'm curious how it's gonna go if it stays at that rate, because I just the people that actually live in my area, like how many of them really do? I don't know, but who knows?
We'll see. I found out when they started legalizing stuff that there's a lot more people that use than I realized. Like I thought it was pretty underground, but as it became more socially acceptable to say you smoked or enjoyed a gummy or an edible occasionally, then that was that. I won't say the specific position because I don't want to say, but a very senior executive at my company mentioned that he enjoys popping a bottle of wine and some edibles on a Friday night, so it's more acceptable every day out there. And I've started noticing them. I went to the vape shop the other day to grab vapes because I vape, and I noticed Scofflaw's brand of THC beverage was in their drink cooler there. So
yep. So breweries are getting into it. Yeah, I mean it's pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah.
You can find it in all sorts of stores, and like you said, in vape shops and just all over the place. So
I don't think any of us are fans of the CBDs or the THC type thing. So as we mentioned, we talk a lot of craft beer adjacent stuff, and I guess those are kind of adjacent to it, but likely will not be something we cover a whole lot. We may talk about a release if there's a big release or something like that, but probably not a whole lot of firsthand experience with any of these.
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we move on, we got a question from old Rich Watson here. He said, did I miss something? Did Ironmonger close down? So, yes, yep. Rich, they did. I've heard some mixed reports on that. They were pretty hush hush about it. But they did, retail production staff and that were like, I've heard a rumor, cannot validate this, that the brewery is going to open as a functional like contract, or they've got some other contracts like they did the what's called 4-6s. Is that it?
4-6s.
Yeah, but I think as far as anybody going there and having a beer, an ironmonger beer, and hanging out, that's definitely gone and may or may not be operated in some other manner. But yeah. So they're out of there. So
we've officially parted ways with them quite a while back, actually. So I
guess they didn't need our studio space as much as they thought they did.
Apparently not. Yeah, I don't think. Unfortunately, it was kind of sad to see it sitting empty. But it's actually the home studios. It's working out nice, and the live stream is a lot more fun this way. I think the camera angles are more enjoyable for people who watch us as we're recording. So
I do believe that the visuals for our live stream viewers definitely are better than they were in the studio. For anyone who's never watched our stream, when we were in the studio, we had one camera that kind of did a sky view of all of us at our studio table there. So whether we had one person or, gosh, I think we had up to 12 people in that studio before.
A couple of times.
Leaders of the brew school,
But however many we just had one camera shot, kind of an overview of the action there. So, and we talked about kind of upgrading, get some other cameras and, video switcher and that. Never got to that, and then, parted ways there. So we made it through. They didn't. So, take from that what you will. But Brian, let's move into our beers of the week. What you drinking, sir?
Yeah, so I pre-gamed with Wrexham Lager. I think I'm saying that right. It just recently came to the U.S. In fact, I was in my local beer store looking for something else, and I saw big banners about it. And I think there's some claims about it being the oldest something or other in some part of the U.K. I don't recall the exact claim. I don't see it on the can, but
it's a football club, right? Wrexham United.
Well, the beer has been around. Apparently, the beer has been brewed since the 19th century, sometime like 1888 or something like that. Yeah. So I think it's older than the football club, but it recently it is now partially owned by the same people who own the football club, which is Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. So I never know if I'm saying his last name right, but they both own that football club by the same name, and now they're part of this. And I think that's the reason this is getting pushed around. And I've seen that football club come up a lot just because of the celebrity power behind them. And I don't watch, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, very much at all. But so anyway, the whole point is that was my pregame. Pretty solid lager, pretty enjoyable. I am working on a 3 Taverns You Like That? That's the name of the beer. It's a cold IPA, a.k.a. an India Pale Lager. And I will be getting into eventually a Bissell Brothers Reciprocal, which is a New England Australian IPA, some combination. It's the whole concept there is it's brewed with Vic's Secret, Ella, and Summer hops, so all Australian hops, I believe. So that's what I'm working on. How about you, Tim? What do you got?
So for my beverage of the night, I have a Green Man ESB.
Oh, that's so
showing a little Asheville love there. So classic. Again, ESB is not a style you see a lot of, but it's just a great drinking beer. If you want to step your flavor profile up a notch from a Pilsner, head up to an ESB there. So it doesn't get too bold for you, but it's got a little more malt character to it, a little more, just a touch more oomph, which I really enjoy. So that's what's on deck for me. Nate, what you drinking?
So in my glass right now, I've got from a now closed Georgia brewery, Elsewhere Brewing. I've got their Oktoberfest. I happen to be out on the town a couple weeks ago and saw a 4-pack in stores, and I was like, I know I can't get this if I don't buy it now ever again. So it's got that nice amber color that I expect out of Oktoberfest. It's nice and malty. And then on deck from Mason Ale Works, I've got Citra Claus, which is a hazy New England IPA. I honestly got it because the Santa Claus on it looks really aggressive. And who doesn't like a beer can with an aggressive looking Santa Claus on it?
He's good for every occasion. I got to agree with you there, Nate. You see an aggressive Santa Claus, you kind of have to go for it there. Yeah. That is for sure. Brian, we're talking about football clubs and such there, and that's not really your forte. I was in a team meeting at work today, and our team is very international. We have people all over the globe, and have one of my teammates is in Pakistan, and one of my American teammates was talking about their Thanksgiving, and they're like, yeah, we had a good meal, spent some time, really just sat around watching football all day. And so my Pakistani teammate, he's like, football. He's like, are you talking like soccer or rugby? And he's like, neither. So,
they call rugby football too. I didn't know that.
Well, okay. I'm just not sure that he's familiar with American football, to be honest with you. So I guess to the outsider looking in, much like we may not know a lot about, football, he probably just, if you don't know anything, it would look like rugby for the most part.
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Not as more padded up and not quite as aggressive as rugby, but it's funny. I think people get hurt more in American football than they do in rugby. Even those guys are just tearing into each other there.
So there's an interesting psychological reason for that. The whole idea is the added pads and the guards and everything else make you more reckless. Because you think you're protected, so you're going to not drive, but maybe drive. You're more likely to dive head first into a guy, and that helmet is going to maybe protect your head, but your neck, your spines, other things, like it can still screw things up, and it'll still jostle your brain around. So I think it gives all the padding in American football gives the illusion of more safety than you really have, and makes people like play more recklessly and more violently, which I think is why, like in rugby, there's not a lot protecting you. You'll get cauliflower ears. You could get a black eye, that sort of thing. But
guys aren't going skull to skull. They're not going to ram each other's skulls together there. So they have enough sense not to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Brian. So moving right along, beer stats. And you know what? One quick thing, we talk about all the brewery closures. So I wanted to mention an opening we're going to have here in Georgia. There's, I believe it's a chain, Voodoo Brewing, they're opening a location here in Roswell, Georgia, and I think it's kind of a brew pub style place. But so we're actually having a brewery opening here soon with all the closures we get. So I'm curious I'll get over there and check them out, see what's up. I did look at some reviews online and heard some chatter from some of the other locals that have been to other locations. They're like, they're fine. It doesn't sound like anything you're going to beat the door down to get there. But if you're looking for a brew and a bite to eat, it sounds like they suffice fine. So
sounds good.
So there we go. Brian.
Yes.
You say we have some beer stats for November and we got a mixed bag ahead of us or behind us.
Yeah. So, you know what? I think it should have been, was this, now I'm not 100% sure if I meant November or December, but anyway, so the latest Beer Purchasers Index, which is what I'm going to talk about here, the report, it's a numerical representation of the industry from the distributor's point of view. The outlook for the overall beer category has gone from cautious to neutral as of the latest number. And I don't know if that actually, I think that covers December. I think when I said November, I was just typing the wrong month.
I guess the outlook would be
future ahead, going forward.
Right.
So it's a numerical rating for the beer category, which is 50, and we're right in the middle. The score of 50 indicates planned or greater than 50. I'm sorry. So a numerical score of 50 is right in the center. A numerical score above 50 indicates there is planned expansion in purchasing and beer ordering in the future. A score below 50 indicates there's a contraction or a planned contraction. We're going to buy less beer is what that means. That's what our plans are. So this means it should be going forward into December, and we're right at 50 for the total beer category. So that means solid. Like people aren't planning on buying more or buying less necessarily, buying the same amount of beer as they did before. So that's heading in the right direction. Because did you have a comment you wanted to make, Tim? I saw you.
No, I was looking ahead at some of your notes on the topic I was going to bring up, but you got it on the list here. So we'll get into it.
So it's heading in the right direction because the BPI number is calculated monthly, and last month it was 42. So we're up, and that was a bit of a contraction the previous month. The number for just the import beer category is actually looking really good at 64, which means there's a lot of expansion going on there. But it'll be interesting to see how this number is affected by potential upcoming tariffs. That number could change in the next calculation. But it's not all good news either. craft beer has recorded its second lowest BPI reading of 18 since the launch of the metric. The only month reading lower than that was 14 back in April of 2020. So the further you get from 50, the more severe the contraction of beer ordering is. And this is a really bad sign for craft beer. So, yeah, 18 is rough. That I don't know numerically how many fewer cases of beer are being purchased, but it's going to be significant and it's going to be noticeable. Breweries are going to feel this, I think. So
okay,
it's going to be a rough one. But here's the thing. One thought I have is we're in a season where a lot of people are buying Christmas beers, and a lot of those beers are imports, and we're seeing a huge spike in imports. So this could be just a seasonal influx of, the various Christmas beers coming from across the Atlantic.
Some Belgian and German goodness and that hitting the table there. Okay. Yeah, we don't see us a lot of good news for the old craft beer thing. So, but Brian, speaking of the tariffs, that's something that we've looked at, we've talked about a lot, not just with beer, but kind of across everything. And it seems a lot of people who voted for someone in support of the tariffs may have not understood exactly the way that tariffs work. So can you explain a bit how the tariffs work, as well as how it's going to impact the beer industry as a whole?
So, yeah, I mean, just in general, the tariffs mean that there will be greater duties paid by by the country sending in product, or the company sending in product from other countries that the tariffs have been levied on. And to make up for those costs, generally speaking, the price of the product goes up because businesses aren't in the habit of just taking it, in the wallet. They usually pass along their additional costs to customers. So,
I think the way it was pitched, the big pitch of it is, I'm going to make these countries pay tariffs, and if you don't know exactly how that works, it sounds great that he's making these other countries pay more to get goods to America. If you do some simple math, if it costs more for them to bring the goods to America or send the goods to America, then American companies are going to be paying more for the goods coming in. And the bottom line is they're going to charge us more for the goods that they sell to us. So it's the end game here is we pay the tariffs. And we will cover the cost of those tariffs, because corporations are not going to take a profit hit to cover that. It's going to be directly impacting consumer pricing.
So typically not. So what's going to happen is those things that do make it through will be more expensive. They necessarily will be, because the costs will have gone up. And additionally, for the businesses who can't raise their price or can't make sales at higher prices, some of those products may actually stop being available. We'll have to find alternatives. Now, theoretically, American companies could step in and fill in some of the gaps, but I think that a lot of this stuff with manufacturing and whatnot, I don't think we have the ability to do it. Like, if we had just these factories just hanging out waiting for people to make orders, like, maybe we could do that, but I don't think I'm no economist, but I just don't see that being feasible. Like, I just know that if you raise the price of something, it's going to get more expensive when somebody turns around and sells it. That's the way it works. People aren't going to take a loss on. We're not going to sell you the same thing at the same price if the costs go up. It just doesn't make any sense. But
crazy.
Let me get into. So, I think that if people haven't heard, President-elect Donald Trump announced on social media that unless the flow of migrants and drugs like fentanyl into the U.S. was stemmed, he will impose 25% tariffs on all imports from Mexico and Canada, as well as additional 10% tariffs on goods from China. I believe China already has tariffs on them. He says he'll do it immediately after being sworn in on January 20th. Assuming he makes good on the threat, how will these tariffs affect craft beer? I think we've kind of hinted at what it will do. We know previous tariffs have had an impact. According to the Brewers Association, a significant amount of barley used by small breweries comes from Canada. It's kind of a mix of local and Canada, and we'll likely see the price of barley overall rise. There'll be less of it. It'll be more expensive from Canada, that sort of thing. Aluminum has been under a tariff since 2018, but the aluminum from Canada was exempt from that tariff. So the cost of cans will probably go up because that supply of less expensive cans will go away. Other materials used in the brewing process are sourced from Mexico, including bottle caps, so those will go up. Not to mention the biggest selling beer in the U.S. today is Modelo, and the price of that is thought it will go up, as well as Corona. Apparently, Constellation Brands stock price fell 3.5% after the announcement, because this is going to hit them pretty hard because all of their beer is imports from Mexico, I believe. So in short, the effects of tariffs on the cost of beer is that it'll go up. Beer prices will go up, and probably across the board by some noticeable amount. I mean, how much? I don't know. I think that's really complicated, because you're going to have to look at all of the various things that are going up at price at all points along the supply chain. So really tough to estimate what that will be. But the Brewers Association points out that there's a chance that the tariffs won't be implemented, but you really should prepare for them to do so. Apparently, Trump did meet with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau after threatening the tariffs, and maybe they're going to work out a deal. I don't know. I mean, maybe this is bluster to get them to do something, and maybe they'll do whatever it takes to make that not happen. I don't know. Not economist, and I really don't know a lot about the policy involved in all this, but I do see, the basic economics here. They don't look good for beer.
The 1,000-foot view there, basically, of what it means there. Wow. And another thing I heard, not directly beer related, but maybe related to how much beer money you'll have, but we get a lot of oil imports from Canada. And so, that's another thing to be hitting the gas tank as well. So, I'm curious to see how all this shakes out here.
I wonder if it's going to happen. I really do wonder if it's kind of I'm going to say something outrageous to get people to do things to prevent it from happening. But honestly, I don't know. This could happen. I really can't make a prediction. So
we'll find out soon enough.
Buy up your import Mexican lagers now. That's all I can say.
Stock your Modelos.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So Brian, we talked about this recently. That Miller does a lot of interesting things here, and they did their what was it called? The bar flume or
Yule lager?
The Yule lager. So did you get you one, Brian?
I did not, and I went looking around, and they were. They went pretty quickly. They were. I found out after the fact. I didn't know this ahead of time, but they're sold out now. But there were only 50 of those made. Okay. But they were $250. So it was a whole cabinet with the tower on it and everything else, and it was really something. I guess it was a proper furniture piece with storage and everything. But I went looking. I wanted to see, what it was all about, how much it was, and $250. But it sold out pretty quick.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't have bought it for $250. I mean, they get some neat little weird items that they offer, and we've grabbed them a couple times just to kind of see. They had beer flavored candies. They had the beer drops that they did. I did want to get that gingerbread house thing that they did, and I missed out on that. But it would definitely be fun to see. But no, I'm not dropping $250 on something that I'm just curious to see what it is there. So
the only thing of those fun things that they've done that I've successfully gotten my hands on is the beer drops.
Yeah,
and I still have them. They're just amusing to me. They're not. The idea is you put a few drops into your basic American light lager, and it turns it into Miller. Like, I don't know about that.
So they say. But Brian, they do have, actually, I think by the time this show releases to the podcast, this sale will be done. But relevant to a couple of our interests, Brian, they are currently in the process of releasing what they're calling a bar fume.
A bar fume, yes. So Miller High Life is awakening the senses, and I'm pulling this right from the press release, awakening the senses this holiday season by bottling everything you love about your favorite dive bar and putting it into a cologne bottle. And they're calling it High Life Dive Bar Fume. And yes, it's a real cologne and everything. It has a scent. They describe the scent journey as having 4 distinctive aroma notes. And cedarwood and patchouli, which I guess is considered one note. It's to remind you of that well-loved bar countertop. So that wood there. Tobacco and leather to represent the comforting musk of a worn-in bar stool, which seems a little weird. But something called Champaca Blossom, which I don't know about, but it's a crisp, refreshing aroma intended to remind you of the bartender opening the champagne of beers. So it's supposed to be very nice and crisp. Sea salt, which is like the basket of fries you look forward to at the end of the night. So the fragrance smells like cedarwood and patchouli, tobacco and leather, some kind of blossom, and sea salt. So there you go. If you can kind of put that in your head and mix that around and see what you think about it. So the High Life Dive Bar Fume went on sale December 4th. It retails for $60 a bottle, and supplies are limited. And like the Yule Lager we talked about just now, it's going to sell out quickly. In fact, earlier today was the first time it was available, and it was gone in under a minute. I haven't seen something move that quickly since Black Tuesday, 10 years ago.
As far as fragrances go, the notes they mention sound decent. The only thing I'm thinking, catch 22 for me, Brian. $60 for a good fragrance is tough, unless you're someone producing massive quantities and all of that. But $60 for a fragrance from Miller to me is too much. So
probably
I'm stuck in between these two, but cedarwood, patchouli, tobacco, leather, Champaca. Champaca's kind of a creamy floral, Brian. It's a floral note there. So, bringing that, and then the sea salt, that's an interesting one, but a lot of things do have kind of a salinity to them a beer, to be honest with you. I'm not sure that, maybe with those other notes and just the kind of a salinity may, to me, evoke beer. I'm not sure. They just totally derail it there with a basket of fries. They're like, we have cedarwood and patchouli, Champaca Blossom, and some French fries.
That's French fries. I think the salt is supposed to remind you of the French fries. I don't know that it's going to smell like fried potatoes, but maybe it will. It is Miller. But again, it is Miller, so they may have hired some really fancy perfumer to make this thing. Say, hey, give us a good fragrance that smells very reminiscent to a dive bar. And when you think about it, like the old wood, the musk, and the tobacco notes from back when you could smoke in a dive bar, like there's a certain aroma to that that's it's not unappealing sometimes. Sometimes it's really unappealing, but other times it's actually pretty pleasant.
All that said, I really do want to smell it and see how it came out there. And they've done a lot of other novelty fragrances. I think it was Auntie Anne's, the pretzel folks. They did one that smells like a fresh baked pretzel.
Oh,
they had one there, and I'm trying to remember. There was another one that did that I saw that's kind of in that same vein there. I think Cinnabon did a cinnamon bun.
See, those are dangerous. I'll smell that and start biting myself. Ow. That's right. I'm not a pretzel.
For those that aren't fragrance nerds, they're a popular category recently. I don't know how recently it is, but they call them gourmand, and it's basically things that smell like baked goods, desserts, those kind of notes in there. So I would bet that if they did a proper Cinnabon cinnamon bun fragrance, that there's some people that probably loved it there. And
I'll bet. Yeah.
Some notes that I saw on the pretzel when people were like, what? This smells like a fresh, soft pretzel straight out of the oven. I'm like, would probably smell really good. I'm just not sure that's how I want to smell.
I just think, that fellow, what a lovely aroma. Yeasty and bready. Like that's just exactly what I look for in a guy. Yeah. Like I want him to smell like a deep fried bread or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Okay. If what, be your individual there. Do what you want to do. So, Brian, if people thought the Sapporo news was done, if they weren't going to do some other stuff to make the news, they were wrong. This time more with Sapporo Stone's partnership. Brian, what's going on?
Yeah, if Sapporo's involved in something, I'm going to keep an eye on it because I haven't forgotten about the Anchor situation. I really haven't. But Sapporo has announced it will cease exporting Stone beers internationally in January of 2025, this coming January. At present, Stone beers are exported to about 20 countries, but it reportedly only accounts for 1% of Stone's total sales. International distribution was a bigger deal for Stone back when there were Stone tap rooms in places like Germany and China, which closed in 2019 and 2020, respectively. But the headlining the discontinuation of international distribution is kind of burying the lead with this story. Stone's U.S. distribution will also be pruned. If you like Stone's Enjoy By series or their other limited releases, they've got I'm trying to remember what their seasonal chocolate one is. That can't think of it. Right now. Chocovesa. I think it applies to that as well. You need to drink up on those because they will become taproom exclusives in the future, reportedly. From the sound of it, you will only be seeing Stone IPA, Stone Delicious, Buena Vesa Mexican style lager, and Stone Pilsner in distribution. So you'll now only see about 4 Stone beers. So that's a big development. I think that's a bigger deal than the international distribution getting cut because, well, I mean, it applies to me.
Right. It impacts me. Do you know anyone getting excited? Do you know of anything exciting that Stone's released or I shouldn't say that like that, but has anything hit there? Anything they've released hit your radar in a while?
Not really. I saw Stone Chocovesa, I think recently-ish, and I thought about it. I was very tempted, but I remember that Sapporo owns them, so I didn't buy it. But I know that there's been a couple of times in the past year or so before I got really angry at Sapporo for their anchor shenanigans, where there were particular Enjoy Buys because of the day. Like there was a 420 Enjoy Buy and some other ones. You couldn't find them. People went out and bought them all out. They like disappeared everywhere. But it had to do with the actual day. It had more to do with the day, I think, than the actual quality of the beer. So
right.
That's the thing that was always a big thing for that is every year if Stone Enjoy By 420 showed up, it was gone. It was gone within minutes. So yeah. But for me, no, not really. I haven't really seen anything from Stone in ages that was all that attractive. So
I mean, even when they did releases that people heard were not that great, like when they did Crime and Punishment.
Oh yes,
people still wanted to get them and check them out, see what they were about there. But yeah, I think we've just steadily gone to where we're drinking a lot more local. I think especially the craft guys, we're going to the brewers we've got right here. I saw today on Facebook that Don't Drink Beer talked about Halfway Crooks non-alcoholic beer and just super, super high praise for it. He's just talking about how many people have come into the industry kind of, they've got some money, they want to dump into it. They make up this sob, origin story about I saw a need in the industry or that. He's like, these guys are not, that's not what these guys are. This is quality brewed on site beer by these guys. And, we've got breweries like that in our backyard, so there's just not as much need to chase around the world and that. But for a brewery like Stone that, they were one of the ones where they grew at a time where distribution was king. And so they got up to that size where that was an important part of their business. So, we've seen the impact of that, having to scale back things a lot.
So the thing is that the Oaxaca the Chocovesa, I no longer am as excited about it because that we've got Mexican cake shows up here.
Yeah,
and that's not as hard to find as it once was. But Oaxaca Chaca from New Realm is also a lot of fun to drink, and it comes out around this time. So we do have more local and more connected beers that we can enjoy, like you were saying. So it's been easy to kind of slide those in, but. Yeah, it is a little sad. It's sad to see that. The Enjoy By, if you found a fresh one, was fun. It was a good drink. Like those were, I think of the last ones I bought, it was the Enjoy By and the Chocovesa. So
yeah, but people aren't lining up to get Stone Delicious or Ballast Point's next Sculpin release or any of that stuff like they used to be. Even chasing down stuff like Maine Beer Company and that. People used to love running on those, and it's just they don't, like they used to.
That reminds me, I actually bought a Maine Beer Company. I was gonna. Okay. I forgot. I think I put it in the fridge and grabbed some other beers, but I was going to get into one of those maybe next week. So yeah,
maybe next week. Well, Brian, before we move on, how about we thank our amazing sponsor, Truck and Tap?
Yeah. So the great thing about Truck and Tap is the variety. Every week I check out the beer list at truckandtap.com, and I always find some intriguing new selections. Of course, it would be, nearly impossible to not find something interesting if you've got 20 rotating taps to choose from, and it's always got fresh beer coming in. So let's take a look at my Truck and Tap beer picks for the week. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm excited to see Allagash's Cool Ship Resurgam, which is a American wild ale blend of 1, 2, and 3-year-old spontaneously fermented sour ales. Allagash does a great work with wild ales, and if you're a fan of goozes, and this is basically the American take on a goose, you should definitely try this one. At the Duluth location, I'm going with Creature Comforts Glittering Eyes. It's a hazy New England IPA featuring a complex hop blend and experimental yeast. I am still excited to see beers made with new and experimental ingredients and yeasts, so I just won't pass this one up. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, I'm going with Moody Tongue's Cherry Oud Brune because it's been a while since I last had an Oud Brune. Like, you just don't see them around very often. It's an amber-bodied sour that was aged for 2 years in Balaton with Balaton cherries in stainless steel tanks. So the stainless steel tank aging is interesting, and they always make a point of pointing that out. So, and finally, at the Lawrenceville location, my pick is New Realm's Oaxaca Chaca, which we just mentioned. And yes, it is fun to say Oaxaca Chaca. I always try to get a pour of this beer whenever it comes out. They call it a Mexican pastry stout. It's made with vanilla, cinnamon, chili peppers, and roasted cocoa nibs. And if it doesn't warm you up on these cold days, nothing will. So I should mention here in the middle of the gift-giving season that Truck and Tap has gift cards for that big craft beer fan in your life, or for yourself. If you buy a Truck and Tap gift card between now and the end of December, you get bonus cash. That's basically free beer money. For specifics on that, check with your local Truck and Tap when you visit next time. So thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you so much, Truck and Tap. We appreciate you guys so very, very much. You know, we've got Bearcoin Nation here watching via YouTube, but he commented about, they commented about farm breweries and mentioned that there's, quite a few that are popping up in their area. I know other states that they're bigger than they are here. We've got Tower House Farm Brewery in Gay, Georgia. Don't laugh. That's where it is, Gay, okay. Georgia. And I know that Pretoria Fields down in South Georgia, I forget the town that they Albany, Georgia. Yeah. They were in like a downtown building location, but they're going to be moving to. They had a farm, Pretoria Fields. They had a farm before the brewery, and they did grow some of their ingredients, but the brewery is moving to the farm. So I know that they have those there. Do you guys specifically know of any others in Georgia off the top of your head? Those are the only two that come to mind for me immediately.
Yeah, honestly, the only one I could think of was Pretoria Fields.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah. Because from the very beginning, the farm was a big part of what they were doing. So, yeah.
And certain states offer some really nice concessions for farm breweries as well. I believe in New York State, there's a lot of benefits to being a farm brewery. So I think there's more of them up there. But maybe it's something we will see more of. I know Wrecking Bar had a farm at one time, but I don't think they brewed there. I think they grew stuff for their restaurant, and it was an event space, but I don't think they actually brewed there. So
yeah, Wrecking Barn, I think is what they called it.
Wrecking Barn, that's correct. Yeah. But interesting. That could be fun. Blackberry Farm. I mean, not in Georgia, but
up in Tennessee. Yeah.
But it is a fairly well-known farm brewery there. So, and for only like $30,000 a night, you can stay at the inn there at Blackberry Farm.
Okay. So, is that the actual price?
That's a slight exaggeration, but it's not an inexpensive resort. That is for sure there. But interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm curious to see if we see more of those, really.
It's a small price to pay for all that classic Saison they make.
It is, man. Gosh, I'd love one of those. I haven't had one of those in a minute.
So they used to be down here all the time. They had the big format bottles, and then for a while we got the 6-packs of them. And I haven't seen them in a while either, unfortunately.
I miss large format on some things. Quite a few places just did away with it. All the times they are changing, fellas.
They are.
These kids killing they are killing off the large format bottles there. Terrible.
First the napkins, and now the large format bottles.
Carbonation.
That's right.
splat drinks in cans is what we'll take.
And they're putting THC in everything now.
Just put some drugs in it. Just put some drugs.
Why not?
Yeah.
No hangover.
That's right. That's right.
Speaking of.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, on the note of hangovers there. So question for you, we're going to talk about hangover myths. Nate, do you have a hangover cure that you believe in?
Don't get drunk.
That's the cure.
Honestly,
prevention.
Don't get the hangover. Like,
well, that's not a myth, though.
But the heart thing.
I'm not asking about myth. I'm just asking about the cures there. So Nate's going with the ounce of prevention method.
Well, because when I was working at the liquor store back in the day, I had somebody come in and she was like, I want something that won't give me a hangover. So I showed her my non-alcoholic section because I was like, nothing in here will give you a hangover.
Bottle of Dasani.
Or, whatever. Here's my syrups bottles. Here's my mixers bottles. No, I mean, it's if you sleep well, if you hydrate and you just try to avoid, I think the preventative side is more of my hangover cure of just trying to prevent it.
Okay. And you know what? Here we go. Here's a cure or a treatment. We'll say that's Amanda chiming in here. And she said that hers is good old water and ibuprofen. And I think that hydration, really is one of the key ones there. So Brian, do you have a go-to hangover cure?
So I think that, obviously not overdoing it. There's nothing you can do if you go too far, but I think that eating well and getting proper nutrition leading up to it is probably the best way to hit it off at the pass. You stay hydrated, eat a good amount of protein, drink a lot of water, and if you don't go too crazy, it won't be too bad the next day. But you're going to deplete yourself. So if you try to do it the same thing again the next day, it isn't going to work as well. So my thought is, and I do think that if you take like a painkiller the day before, the night of, but when you're going to bed, as long as you don't go too far with it and don't get too dehydrated, it will actually get rid of or prevent the majority of any kind of a headache you get the next day. Okay. It isn't going to do much for your stomach. Your stomach is going to get wrecked if you're just you go too wild with it. So there's not much you can do about that. I guess you could do Pepto and a pain pill, maybe the night before. A pain pill. So,
yeah. So when I was in New Orleans one time for a cigar convention, Brian, I believe you were down there at the same time.
Yes.
For that. And I didn't follow the prevention advice in the least. I drank a lot of frozen drinks and whiskeys and, all kinds of stuff. And I did find myself one morning with a pretty severe hangover, and there was a little corner store from my hotel. So I stumbled down there, and they really didn't have much, but they had, there's this drink called Rockstar Recovery. And it's an energy drink plus hydration beverage. So, got, your electrolytes plus your stimulants in there. And then I've always been a fan of Aleve as a painkiller. So I drank one of those, and it was a tall boy. It was a long drink, Brian, there.
A long one, yeah.
A long one, a long not beer. But that and 2 Aleve. And I'll be honest, I don't think Aleve is a good idea if you've had alcohol. I don't think they play well together in the liver, but I didn't know that at the time. But that was super effective. And I mean, I don't think there's anything there magical as much as it had electrolytes to rehydrate. I had a painkiller in there and then little stimulants to take some of the fog away. So I don't know that it's a cure, but I felt better. And probably by the time all of that mix of stuff wore off, the hangover itself was wearing off as well.
I just remember when we were talking about this, for a while, I worked a very short time in London. And one of the guys I worked with was an Australian who liked to go out and drink. I went out and drank with him. And his cure for the next day, feeling kind of rough, was putting Vegemite on crackers. And so I said, you know what? Right. The heck with it. Let me try it. I'm going to say it had a small but positive impact on the whole situation. And I'm guessing there's B vitamins and there's some other stuff in there that was effective. It tastes terrible, honestly. But if I would rather deal with something that tastes terrible momentarily and get rid of a lot of symptoms than just deal with the symptoms on a long term. So it was kind of, you pick which is the best of a bad pairing of options. So yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. But all that said, with all of our miraculous cures and preventions, NPR recently took on hangover myths and talked about them. What'd you find out there, Brian?
Yeah. I guess a bunch of articles were out there recently about it, and I guess it has to do with Drinksgiving just having passed, or Blackout Wednesday, the phenomenon of just over consuming before Thanksgiving. I didn't do it, but that's a thing. But so they listed all of the most popular myths, and they basically debunked them. So the first myth they listed was all hangovers are the same. And their point is that everyone's hangover and the symptoms are different due to variations in age, weight, alcohol tolerance, genetics, and a variety of other factors. And apparently, 25% of people who drink to the point of intoxication don't get hangovers. So those lucky few, this is not even relevant for. The length of the hangover also varies, as anyone over the age of 40 can tell you. They get very long and sometimes multi-day. And the point is, whatever hangover trick you have that works for you is unlikely to work for everybody else. It may not work for anybody else. It may just be one specific thing for you. Maybe you're the kind of person that gets a little dehydrated and you don't have any of the other symptoms, like that 25%. So that's a very interesting one. The next myth is you can prevent hangovers with water or hydration supplements, which is what you were just talking about.
It was, yeah.
So dehydration is only one part of a hangover, and drinking water can help with that. But alcohol also causes inflammation, gastrointestinal irritation, disrupted sleep, and low blood sugar. It also exposes you to acetaldehyde, a toxic byproduct produced when your body metabolizes alcohol, which can damage your cells and tissues. So the reality is that water and sports drinks will not help you with these other things, but they'll keep you hydrated. So they got that going for you.
So, Brian, I want to go back to my cure, because as they're talking here, I think I may have found the combination on this, because they talk about inflammation, and Aleve is an anti-inflammatory. So we've got that.
Point. Yeah.
They talk about low blood sugar, and I'm sure that Rockstar had more sugar in it than I cared to look
Probably.
at. So
yeah.
Got up there. Disrupted sleep. I don't think there's anything my magical concoction will do for that. And I didn't have anything in there for any kind of gastrointestinal irritation, but I think my miracle cure is covering a few of the bases here. So
if you take melatonin and then a Pepto-Bismol, maybe they'll cover all the bases.
We'll go.
Then we're fine. We're good.
Yes. Or you
have to swallow an entire pharmacy the night of, and you'll feel great the next day.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard some of, there's one that's like a raw egg, a shot of Tabasco, horseradish, and a shot of Worcestershire or something. And people swear that it works, but I don't know. I've never tried that one.
I've heard about it. I've never tried it. It just sounds revolting. I'll deal with the pain.
Like,
I don't have the energy to do that the next day, so it just never happens.
Okay.
I have to prepare it the day before, and it sounds disgusting.
Gotcha.
So the next myth is hair of the dog can stop a hangover in its tracks. Hair of a dog obviously is the beer or some other drink consumed the morning after a big drinking session. Traditionally, it's the same thing you were drinking the night before. It may offer some temporary relief by raising your alcohol levels and masking your symptoms like the jitteriness and the anxiety and the pain, but you are just kicking the hangover can down the road, and you will likely end up feeling worse once you finally dry out. So, you're just building up damage basically at that point. The next myth is beer before liquor. Never been sicker. Liquor after beer in the clear. And I always mess that one up. The simple fact is the order of alcohol does not determine the severity of your hangover. The volume of alcohol does. The one thing that makes the myth kind of true is you're more likely to regret it if you start your drinking session with beer, get a little buzz on, and then end up doing shots. But that has more to do with you drinking too much too recklessly due to reduced inhibitions by getting a gentle buzz on before you get wild. So again, it's about volume and not order. So I
could, that makes sense thinking of it. If you start out with some shots or some mixed drinks and you get a little buzz on and you're like, you know what, I'm going to move to beer. Then you've obviously got enough sense about you to slow down.
Yes.
But if you start with some beers, you get a little buzz on. It's like, hey, you guys want to do some shots? You're heading in a different direction.
You are opening a Pandora's box of alcohol. Yeah.
So makes sense.
And so I think this one is really more of is guidance more than like avoiding it. It's like, if you do this, you are going to wind up. So in a way, it's not really a myth. It's just like good advice. But it won't prevent you from getting a hangover. So the next myth is taking painkillers before bed helps you get ahead of hangovers. So to be fair, the article really doesn't describe how this is a myth exactly. I kind of think that the painkillers do in fact help you with the discomfort that comes with a hangover, and that part does not seem to be a myth to me. But again, if you drink really too much and get too dehydrated, I don't think even they can help you out with it. But the benefits do come with a cost. Painkillers might lessen your pain, but they also do more harm than good in some cases. One drink combined with Advil, Aleve, or aspirin can increase your risk of gastrointestinal bleeding by 37%, according to the NIAAA. I don't actually remember which organization
that's a large percentage. I wondered. I mean, 37%, that's a pretty major increase there.
Yeah. That means that it's probably over time going to do damage if you do that a lot. You also risk liver damage by combining alcohol with painkillers that include acetaminophen. So I've known for a while that you don't mix those two together. So that's definitely avoid doing that. Find something else aside from acetaminophen. So I think it's the final myth here. Hangover symptoms are strictly physical. So hangovers can and do affect your mental health as well. Drinking too much can make you feel overwhelmed, irritated, or on edge the next day. There's a term for it, I guess, it's been making the rounds of social media. They call it hangxiety. I didn't actually know this was a thing until reading this. You may feel calm when you're under the influence, but as the alcohol leaves your system, it causes a surge of adrenaline, which can lead to feelings of worry and stress and anxiety and all these things. So, what's the official word on hangovers? According to Dr. Ryan Marino, the doctor they talked to for this article, the only sure way to prevent a hangover is to abstain from drinking, which is what Mike Nate said. And it's boring. So,
but it works.
It does work.
Absolutely effective.
Yes. The only thing that will get you over a hangover once you have one is time, which is also kind of boring. Drinking water, on the other hand, or other hydrating beverages during a night out is still a good idea. It'll keep you hydrated. It will reduce and space out your drinks. So if you stop to drink water, that's less alcohol you're consuming, and that's more you're fighting against dehydration. So that's smart. You do that. It is still not going to cure you, but it's going to help out. And according to some studies, dark liquor like bourbon and brandy contain higher levels of flavor compounds called congeners, which have been shown to proportionally worsen hangovers. So a brown liquor will give you a heck of a headache the next day. But on a personal note, I would like to argue that the worst of all hangovers is a wine hangover. But it's also one of the best drunks too. So
okay.
Yeah, can confirm wine hangovers are the worst.
Terrible.
I don't think I've ever had one.
Sulfates, I think, or something like that. And also congeners, probably.
That is what I've heard. Well, good stuff, man. We debunking some myths there. And you know what? I'm sure there's people that heard this that some of their favorite remedies were probably covered in this. And they're like, yeah, I know it works for me. I've done it. I know it. And you know what? If you feel that way, whether it's placebo or not, rock on. Go for it. Every darn bit. And if it doesn't, you believe it does, so be it.
And it's a chance it does actually work for you due to genetics or something else. Just not for most other people. That's all.
Sure. And again, like with the one I'm talking about, it alleviates some of the symptoms. I don't think it's curing a hangover. It may just make them a little more tolerable until they pass there. So
yeah,
that's that. Well, y'all, that about wraps up our show for this week. We thank you for hanging out with us. If you enjoy what we're doing here, we would love it if you would tell a friend to listen to the show. Send them a link. Tell them your favorite episode or favorite topic on here. If you really dig what we're doing, we would really appreciate it if you supported us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. We'll get you in our Discord chat. We'll send you out some cool swag. And most of all, you would get our appreciation. With that said, I hope you all have a great week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.